Hey gang, like a bad penny, we're back. It is the Gun Cranks, another weekly edition of America's favorite gun talk show, and the one that is guaranteed to give Nancy Pelosi nightmares. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, along with AmericanCop.com editor Erick Gelhaus, and Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner. And we've got a great topic today, and I'll tell you where this got started. I was out doing some filming recently, and I was watching the various and sundry positions people used when they weren't actually firing. And there were guns pointed every which direction at every different speed. And you know, again, I'm freely admit I'm an old troglodyte. I learned under the modern technique as devised by Colonel Cooper, and in the majority of circumstances, I just don't see where low ready's such a bad thing. But now everybody's got all these other cool positions and things, and I don't see how they really are that much better. But I thought this would be a good way to bring this in, but I'll have Erick address that because he's an instructor at Gunsight where the whole thing came together. So Erick, talk about where the low ready came from and where it stands today.
Where you'll what the low ready is: muzzle's depressed, both hands are on the gun. It's generally out to full extension. Muzzle's depressed to where you can see all of the threat. The muzzle's not covering the bad guy. It's not putting you in a position where you can be accused of brandishing, assault with a deadly weapon, anything like that. It's described as one of three places that you can have the gun oriented when you're down at Gunsight as a student: in the holster, at a low ready, or up on target. The good news is that we're now getting science and research that's backing why having a lower muzzle is a better idea because of the amount of information that you get in. That information coming in leads to better decision making. And just as an example, going from the gun pointed in on somebody's chest, looking through the sights at them, and if they turn with something in their hand versus having the gun down at a low ready, you get over 100% reduction in mistake of fact shootings by having the pistol down at a low ready versus having it pointed on the chest. And we did an article at American Cop on that subject that appeared earlier this year. So that very subject, it was a spin-off of a presentation I'd done.
Yeah. Now, Tom, you've accidentally shot dozens of people. I mean, where do you keep your gun between strings of fire?
I use a technique, and you guys may be familiar with it. It's called CAR, and I'm pretty sure it stands for Cinderella Adoration Response. You guys familiar with that one? It's kind of weird. Like you hold one arm in. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. That what it stands for? Do you know, Erick? You're the instructor. You ought to know this.
I believe that would be the center axis relock method.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that because I think I do like Cinderella. Got it right with the Cinderella Adoration response. But
Tom, you need a YouTube channel.
No, I don't actually use that. It still cracks me up because for a project I tried it once and, you know, shot a bunch of targets all contorted like that. And I think I looked really tactical, but I couldn't shoot worth a damn that way. So I bagged it.
You know, I think Erick kind of hit the nail on the head. Again, there's certain circumstances where maybe some of these other positions would be useful, but day in and day out, especially in a search situation, it's worked out really good for me, and I've pointed my gun at people, you know, a few times. So is Erick. What I think is, as I'm in a low ready, if I have to come up on target, I'm just the muzzle on the barrel on a tank. Up, down, up, down. It's pretty simple. I'm looking at the target. Oh, I've got to do something. It just comes up. I just don't see why some of this other stuff would be better. Now, having said that, there are some circumstances where maybe some of these other things might be a good thing. So, Erick, talk about that a little bit.
One of the things that argues against a low ready on occasion is, what if you're in an environment where there's a bunch of folks down around the ground, or shorter than you? Say, you know, you're at your kid's nursery school or elementary school and something's gone sideways and now you have to have a firearm out. Having it out in a low ready with the kids around may not necessarily be the best idea. So you would want to go to a more elevated ready position. But one of the problems with that is it tends to go from muzzle up, not covering anyone, to muzzle parallel to the ground, pointed at everybody else's chest pretty quickly in a lot of cases. Anything that starts to come up towards the eye line and can block what you're seeing and perceiving works against you in terms of getting visual information and being able to process and make good decisions. Just because it's faster doesn't mean it's the best idea.
Good point. Well, now, Tom, you're an advanced practitioner of Sewell, right?
No. Well, I could be. I don't know. Do you guys need a devil's advocate for this discussion? You know, I could take that position. You know, for a few dollars, I could definitely argue on behalf of that. You know, when I'm clearing houses, which I do quite frequently, especially when I'm grossly outnumbered by hidden bad guys, you know, I find it's a little handier, a little better for gun retention, you know, as I'm cruising around taking them out. So,
but you look highly tactical, and that's what's important, right?
I do. So.
Now, Eric, talk a little bit about Sewell, and I think right now that's probably the one that has the most amount of horse dumplings spread about it. Yeah, it looks really cool and highly tactical, and it wasn't devised to be highly tactical.
No,
right?
So Sewell is, if I remember right, it's Portuguese for south. It was devised by the folks over at TEAS, the Tactical Explosive Entry School. They were doing stuff down in Brazil and other parts of South America where they needed a movement position, not a ready position, but a movement position for moving around other people who were around them, like in a stack, maybe kneeling using cover. And that's where that developed from. It's a movement position. It's not a ready position. One of the problems with using it as a ready position is that it's awful close to the body and can easily get trapped and pinned.
And I think that's a great way to know if somebody knows what they're talking about. When they're talking about this great ready position, it's like, change the channel. They don't know what they're talking about. But again, they look highly tactical, right?
Yes.
No, but you bring up a great point, though, Eric, and we've talked about this on a lot of shows, the whole binary nature of gun people. You know, that's stupid and that's great. It's the only way. Context really matters across the board, and I think you just hit the nail on the head, so I'm emphasizing your point. You know, a movement position versus a ready position. Big difference there, right?
And there's a couple other positions that people will get spun up about, but they're for moving the gun around or in relation to other people. They're not how you clear a building. They're not how you clear an airplane. Right? Not that I've ever had to clear an airplane. But they're just designed to keep the muzzle off of other folks while you're moving from point A to point B.
Yeah. Well, talk a little bit about the big argument that I always get is, well, somebody can grab your gun. Well, yeah, they can, but that's going to be a bad day for them unless they are smart enough to get, say, an auto pistol out of battery. And if it's a revolver, they're having a real bad time. But talk a little bit about that and that whole, they're going to grab your gun and they're going to take it away from you.
Can they grab it? Yeah, it's possible they can. There's a whole lot of things that are possible. Is it probable? Not as much. One of the concerns is don't close the distance if you don't have to, right? Cops have to close the distance to put handcuffs on people, but we're telling folks to do it when there's at least two of you there, and whoever's going to go hands-on puts their pistol away. You can retract the pistol. You can work from a couple of variations of low ready. You can work all the way back to a retention position where your shooting hand is indexing on the side of your chest, specifically your pectoral muscle, and you're going for either a base pad to the ribs index or the thumb and your pectoral muscle index, right? For your right-handers. I got to put that out there for you guys. I know you're slower because there's so many of you. Sorry, I'm left-hander. I got to go down that road, guys.
Wow.
But there's other ways you can do this, right? You don't have to have it out at full extension all the time. You can bend the arms slightly and bring it back. You can retract the pistol all the way back to a retention position and use your non-shooting hand to keep somebody at distance.
Well, I think that's critical, too, is people always overlook the modern technique incorporates a retention position, and it's part of your presentation. So why would we learn something different? I don't know. I don't know, man.
I don't know. It works, right? I'm not saying it's the A answer for every circumstance, but the low ready does work. And worst case scenario, you use it as part of like the Arca Ready that Dave Spalding teaches, where that muzzle orients based on who's around you.
Yeah. I wish the audience could see our feed back to production headquarters. Nick, our editor, is losing his mind over that 3-second dead pause here.
He's holding up a resignation.
Sorry, I thought somebody else was going to talk.
No, that was a baby. He's got his baby in the control room. Folks, if you ever wonder, how do they do this? And they must practice this. If there's any doubt, that last 30 seconds of program, there's no doubt. Yeah, no, exactly. Well, Tom, have you invented any other positions we should know about?
No, I'm sticking with car. Absolutely. Eric doesn't know what he's talking about.
I don't know. And actually, on my video feed, I think Erick's froze up, so he may have just checked out for good. And he's completely dropped out. So I don't know what happened to California. It may have separated from the continental United States. So Tom,
they're onto him. He's giving out shooting advice from a hidden bunker in California.
Oh, that's right.
So they cut him off. Hey, it's a good point to wrap up the show.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, it's been great having Erick Gelhaus, I couldn't even think of his name there for a second. Erick Gelhaus, editor of AmericanCop.com, and we appreciated him joining us for 3/4 of a program. And Tom McHale, the editor of AmericanHandgunner.com. Check out our websites, AmericanCop.com, GunsMagazine.com, AmericanHandgunner.com. Check out our Guns Magazine podcast. Check out our social media. Check out our other YouTube channels. Make sure you subscribe and leave us a comment. And I really would like to see some comments from the audience talking about how professional we are when we film these segments. So anyway, I think Erick might be back with us. Erick, have you rejoined the fold? Oh, great. Yeah. Excellent. Well, did you have any final thoughts on the whole position of low ready and all that controversy?
Yes. Not everybody needs a muzzle on them, right? You've got to be able to not point a muzzle at somebody until you've made the decision to shoot them. But sometimes you need the pistol out of the holster, and it's a nice place to work from between that cuts down on any of those problems.
And that's a great way to finish this episode, which has now been nominated for worst episode ever after over a year and a half. So we're number one,
Get
guys.
Your votes in early.
Get your votes in early. And if you're in Chicago, vote early and often, okay? Anyway, on behalf of Erick Gelhaus, Tom McHale, Brent Wheat, and the cast of thousands back at the control center who are just losing their minds right now, I'm Brent Wheat. We'll see you next episode, guys.